Welcome all formally, and as usual, now I like to give my virtual hugs to you all. Big virtual hugs to all of you, and special welcome for those of you joining us for the first time. We've had another challenging week in the travel industry, and we're really looking forward to better days. And our team has been helping clients rearrange plans and if they were going to be traveling in February. But we're also telling people, I mean, some people are very optimistic and calling and saying, oh, well, can I go in, soon? And we're saying, actually, we don't recommend anyone plans anything until at least the end of March, because it doesn't look good until then. But it's good to know that the vaccination and vaccination program started, and that seems to be going well in the UK. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. So that's what we're all kind of focused on right now, light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, in the meantime, we've been focusing on creating more resources and expanding our wellbeing at home community. And I've been keeping myself busy talking to people to bring you some more great events in the future. We're still working on kind of getting to know our new technology platform. Quite honestly, I never thought I could understand so many things about plugins and software. But you know what, when you learn new things, I guess you have to become a bit resilient and open your mind to different things. So it's been interesting and fun. So we've been posting some resources on the forum, and I've started a new group called Nutrition. So you can, if you click on groups, you'll be able to see that. As we finish off this site and this forum, we'll do like a little video on how to use it. We're not quite there with it all yet, but we will do that so it's easier for everybody to know how to use it, and also for us too. But coming back to this group, this nutrition group, please do join it, and we'll share lots of content on there specific to nutrition moving forward, like even after this this session with Olga's over. And feel free to also share, ask questions, share your own recipes, share your own pics, that kind of thing. Olga and I are the first members in the group, so join us so we don't get too lonely now on our own. And coming back to today's session and the subject of mastering our metabolism, I know some of you posted on the forum about having started an intermittent fasting regime, and heard some really good comments on there, seen some good comments, I should say, about people feeling lighter, more focused, which is great, which is what it's all about. There's also a couple of messages there about the challenges, and I can relate to that. I've started it again too, but I get those carb cravings in the afternoon. So Olga, please help us with that throughout your session today. Is there anyone else, or is it just me who has that issue? I don't know, like 4 or 5 o'clock, that's it. I'm looking for those carbs, like please. So I'm sure Olga can help us with that. As usual, put your questions in chat, and we'll address them as we go along. So Olga, lovely Olga, where are you?
I'm here.
You're here.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome again, and thank you for joining. And I again hope you find this session very useful. And I'll pause for questions probably about halfway, so we can keep up with the questions. The majority of today's session is about this new development in our weight regulation. It's all about gut microbiome and different composition of gut bacteria. So the majority of the session, I kind of felt that this was important to know, and there's a lot of things that we can do about it ourselves without the need of, going to see a nutritionist or doing any expensive investments in that. So, and then I only touch on some conditions such as thyroid, adrenals, vitamin D. And then in the end, I also have a mindful aspect of it. So this is probably where I'm going to cover things like when you struggle, when you fall off the wagon, what to do, you know, what things could be helpful to use, I suppose. And yes, there are other things that I wanted to talk about, but I'm not sure if we have enough time, but I'll try to cover everything, of course. So let me just share my slides with you. Okay. Okay, great. So we'll talk about resistant weight loss. Why is that? Some people seem to have no issues with losing weight at all. They don't really need to follow any specific diets. They can almost eat anything and everything they want, and they will never put on weight. We probably all know these kind of people. What we actually finding out from scientific research that our gut microbiome is the missing link. This is what explains these kind of situations. And there's also genetic link. This is what makes us all very, very different from each other. For some people, having a low carbohydrate diet is really working well for their genetics. For others, maybe a Mediterranean type diet would be a better option. There's also obviously hormones. We know about the thyroid and adrenal. So if we have any imbalances that would reduce our thyroid function or would reduce the amount of thyroid hormones that we produce, this does affect our metabolism or slows it down. And the same with adrenals. So because adrenals are responsible for flight or fight response or stress response, whenever we are very, very stressed, we do know that we tend to put on weight. So we'll look at that as well. There's also, I want to touch on vitamin D because that's one of the most important nutrients that shows a link with successful weight loss. And sometimes it can prevent people from losing weight effectively when they are vitamin D deficient. And so there are other micronutrients also involved in metabolism. And if we have time, we'll talk about calories in, calories out kind of theory of weight loss and why I think it doesn't work. So let's start. So why are we very different? It's because we have completely different gut microbiome. From person to person, it does vary quite a lot. And the scientific studies have been finding that people who have resistant obesity or really struggle to lose weight, they have very specific features of their gut microbiome or gut bacteria. We also are different genetically, or you know, our DNA is quite different. And as I mentioned, hormones play a really important role in this. And it also depends on our initial metabolism. If we've been you know, working really well, if our metabolism is quite fast, then it's kind of easy for us to lose another kilo, another 2, so it shouldn't be a problem. But then for people who've been yo-yo dieting for years, this is when our initial metabolism does go down, or the ability to burn calories efficiently. This is when we start seeing the problems of reduced metabolism. And also glucose sensitivity is also very different from person to person. So the previous session when we talked about how we can, you know, switch that metabolism from glucose burning to fat burning, and how we can improve insulin sensitivity, how we can improve or reduce the amount of insulin that we produce. So this relates to glucose sensitivity. The higher glucose in our blood, the more difficult it is for our body to utilize it. Yes, either we store it or burn it for energy. So people with really great insulin or glucose sensitivity cope really well with that, but people who don't have that sensitivity you know, in a good range, this is when they tend to store it as fat. So What is our gut microbiome? We know that in our large intestine, in our, well, really in our, the whole tube that comprises our digestive tract, we have lots of different bacteria, viruses, yeasts, parasites, fungi. We actually know that we are outnumbered by microbial cells. And we are about 70% microbiome, or those bacteria cells, compared to our own human cells. So this is how important they are in our overall health. They are quite, outnumbering us. And we are finding out that it is actually one of the most important risk factors for developing obesity. It's just because the gut microbes, they produce things like short-chain fatty acids. And these are the molecules that attach to receptors on our gut wall, and they stimulate those hormones. I think someone's asked me to cover leptin, which is the hormone that tells us that we've had enough to eat. It's a satiety hormone. So if when we have those short-chain fatty acids and they attach to the receptors, they can make us produce more leptin. They can make us produce some other hormones that signal to our brain that we are full, and that would stop you craving and will stop appetite. And these gut hormones also suppress appetite by, they can delay gastric emptying, and also they can centrally promote satiation. Our gut microbiome has a crucial role in harvesting energy from the food that we eat. It's like the difference between one person can eat a whole bowl of pasta, and what the gut microbiome will do, it will kind of ignore half of the bowl, half of the pasta, and it will just ferment it, produce gas, and get rid of the fiber, and basically half of the calories and half of the carbohydrates will not even enter your bloodstream, just because gut microbiome can block it from entering. Compared to a second person who has different gut microbiome, and by eating that whole bowl of pasta, these gut bacteria, they will ferment it, they will produce sugar from those carbohydrates, and then they will eat the sugar and they will produce double amount of sugar, and you will absorb everything into your bloodstream. So from that bowl of pasta, you're probably getting an equivalent of 4 bowls of pasta, calories and carbohydrates. That's what gut bacteria can do to you. There are a lot of research to show that it definitely works, and the scientists done a lot of different experiments to prove how it works. So there is no question about that the gut microbiome role in obesity is very, very important. But what is really good about it is that we know how we can manipulate the gut microbiota, and we could help ourselves lose weight or prevent obesity by doing that. So what are the features of obese human gut microbiome? There are several different types of or main classes of gut microbiome. One of them is called firmicutes. And we do know that people who have higher percentage of firmicutes do develop obesity. And we also know that low bacterial diversity is also a feature in obese subjects. And the low level of bifidobacteria has also been shown, or has been associated with obesity. And the bacteria called Staphylococcus aureus have been found a lot in people who are overweight. And there is also Enterobacter class of bacteria that also can significantly increase with obesity. So let's look at the example So this is a stool test. I think I've covered this stool test in the previous session when we talked about digestive health and gut microbiome. So here you have an example of a person who is overweight and who's struggling to lose weight, and she's tried loads of different diets. So what we see in here are the exact features that I've just mentioned. We're seeing higher level of firmicutes here. This is Firmicutes phylum. They are increased, while the second most important or most abundant type of gut bacteria called Bacteroides, this is the first one here, is reduced. Now, we're also seeing pretty low bacterial diversity. As you can see, we really want to see all of the numbers around here, this line. This is how many we should be having, or maybe somewhere in between -25% to +25%. So certainly in this section here. We're only seeing two different types of bacteria that are in high numbers. We also seen two big phylum or classes of bacteria that have NR. NR means there was none detected at all. So this person is completely missing two big classes of bacteria. And we do know that they are essential and really important for overall health, not just for weight regulation. Now, this is the same person's gut microbiome. So now we're looking at not just the phylum, the big classes of bacteria, but we're also looking at different subclasses of what is, included in those classes. Again, so we can have a better look at what's happening here. We can see that firmicutes are increased. So if we compare this section, firmicutes, they are in total much higher than Bacteroides here. And here at the bottom, we can see the ratio, yeah? So we want the ratio to be towards this side, towards the firmicutes, yeah? But it's now towards the Bacteroides here. Now, the second one, low bacterial diversity. Yes, we've seen it in the previous picture, but here you can see it better. Everywhere where you can see L or DL, that means DL means below detectable levels, L means low levels. So here you can see there's so many different bacteria that are very low or completely missing from this person. And we also see low level of bifidobacteria that is also involved in obesity. So where is this? This one, bifidobacterian species. Look, it's kind of close to the low border here. I want to see them on this side. And this is another one, so Enterobacter species that also was detected in this person and in very, very high numbers. So you can see there is Enterobacter cloacae type and yes, so that's just one Enterobacter. And here you can see it's 4+. PP means potential pathogen. So not only it's causing this person to put on weight or to have difficulty losing weight, but it also can cause disease, yeah, gastrointestinal disease. So here it is. Right, you probably heard of the fecal transplantation studies, but this is just the best example to show or to prove that changing gut microbiome of a person, or in this case, we're looking at mice studies, can really make them lose weight. So what the scientists did here, this is a very famous study. They took the twins. One twin was overweight or obese, and the other one was lean. And they took their gut microbiome and they transplanted it into mice. They took 2 mice that were leptin deficient completely. So leptin was taken out of the equation here completely. And they put a obese microbiome in one and lean microbiome in the other one, but they kept them on the same diet, right? It was healthy diet for a mice, something that mice should really keep trim or keep slim on. So for them, it's low fat, high fiber diet. And look what happened. The mice who received obese twin microbiome developed obesity and developed high body fat, but the other ones stayed lean. So this is the difference between two people having exactly the same diet. One is losing weight, the other one is putting on. How can you explain it? Only through gut microbiome. All right, so dietary modulations of the gut microbiome. What can we do in order to correct the situation? We have prebiotics. So prebiotics are specific food compounds that our body does not digest or absorb. So it's there specifically just to feed our gut microbiome. So this is something that our gut bacteria eats. Yeah, they ferment this undigested fiber, and they create specific compounds as a response to that. Things like short chain fatty acids. Then they signal to our brain that we're full, shut down our appetite, and make sure that we stop eating. So these are really, really important. But there are lots of different types of prebiotics. We know about inulin is very well known. There is fructooligosaccharides, galactooligosaccharides. There is resistant starch. There's a lot of different types of arabinoxylan. I can't even pronounce half of them. There's lots of different compounds. One very well-known compound called glucomannan has been studied specifically for weight regulation purposes, and they actually can carry a weight loss claim, the supplements with the glucomannan. I think they managed to show that 3 grams of glucomannan per day can help people lose weight just because it feeds the right type of gut bacteria. We also have probiotics here. So there's lots of studies done again to show that specific strains of specific probiotics can help us lose weight or improve our metabolism by changing gut microbiome. We also know about fatty acids, especially omega-3 fatty acids. And this is another reason why fish oil or omega-3 is really good for us, because it helps us change our gut microbiome. We also have fiber that is very similar to prebiotics, a fiber that can dramatically alter gut microbiome profile related to obesity. There's lots of different fiber mixes that I use with my clients, but again, we try to make them as tailored as possible based on the gut microbiome, what we see in the test results, for example, so that we know what you're missing and we know which microbes we need to feed or which microbes we need to reintroduce into your system. Right, so this study shows how dietary alterations of the gut microbiome actually improves weight and fat mass. And it was a systematic review and meta-analysis, which is considered gold standard, like it's the best type of, the best quality of scientific evidence. And what they found here, they compared probiotics, prebiotics, and symbiotics. So symbiotic is something that combines both pro and prebiotics, yeah, but it's kind of, it's a formulation, already set formulation. And what they found was that probiotics use was associated with significant decreases in BMI, so that's weight and fat mass. And studies of subjects consuming prebiotics also demonstrated significant reduction in body weight, but they failed to show any response to symbiotics. And in my opinion here, so basically, we also in clinic, we sometimes use things like antibacterials, and this is not that is routinely studied in this in the scientific evidence, because sometimes what we sometimes see a lot of potentially pathogenic bacteria in the gut that occupies the space. So trying to crowd them out by putting in probiotics or trying to feed good type of bacteria or grow good type of bacteria by just giving prebiotics may not necessarily work for all people. Sometimes what you have to do, you have to clear the space. Like, for example, you know, antibiotics can do that. But of course, we don't recommend antibiotics for this purpose. So something gentler like natural antibacterials can also do the job. So they will first clean the space or empty the space for the good type of bacteria to be able to attach. It's like if I'm a bacteria and I'm coming into this room and I'm thinking, okay, it's nice and warm here, it's light, there's lots of foods, lots of friends, and there's lots of furniture, I'm staying, I really like it here. But then if I'm coming in and it's cold, there's no food, there's lots of enemies in the corner that produce toxins that can kill me, I'm out, I'm not staying in. So it's also about creating the environment, the correct environment in the gut for those good type of gut bacteria to stay. This is one of the studies that showed that Lab 4, which is one of the really well researched probiotics, also showed a very significant weight loss reduction or weight loss effect with daily supplementation. Let me see how long the supplementation was. Right, it was 9 months randomized trial. So it's not a quick fix. This is how long it takes to change your gut microbiome using the prebiotics, in this case Lab 4. But they did manage to get pretty good results. So like you can see here, it was a decrease in body weight, and supplementation also resulted in significant between group decreases in waist circumference and hip circumference. So you can see it's not just the weight reduction, but also perhaps even more important markers such as hip and waist circumference. Right, this is another trial I wanted to show you that shows inulin. So this is one of the prebiotic fibers on weight management. And these are the people with pre-diabetes. So they have really poor glucose control already. And inulin showed to have, so inulin may have two-pronged effect on the risk of diabetes. It first, it promoted weight loss, and it also reduced a lipid profile with in pre-diabetic subjects, which is an independent from weight loss marker. Right, going back to the same picture of the same person, there is another thing I wanted to show you, which is very exciting. It's all about Akkermansia. So this person is also missing this very important bacteria called Akkermansia. You can see DL means below detectable level. So what do we know about Akkermansia? Well, Akkermansia has been shown to be super important in development of obesity. There's thousands of studies done. There are lots of different trials going on in terms of separating Akkermansia into a tablet or into a probiotic supplement and trying to use that for weight control. These haven't yet brought us any results per se, because we're struggling to understand why. Well, it looks like Akkermansia just does not survive in the tablet while it's traveling through our gastrointestinal tract. So it doesn't get to where it needs to. It only works if you do it via fecal transplantation. Obviously, only what we've done so far was in mice. There are a couple of human fecal transplantation trials to date, but then they come back with, how do I say this? So it's not really effective way as they can see. But they're trying to make sure it's getting better. Basically, they're trying to understand why it's not working as well as it's working in mice. Obviously, humans are much more complicated than mice. So they did put Akkermansia in a capsule already, and they've done the trials, but they don't work as well. So what we're left with here is that we can only try and grow Akkermansia. We can't put Akkermansia as a supplement or as a probiotic thing. So what we know about Akkermansia here, so it colonizes the mucosal layer of the gut and it modulates our basal metabolism. So this is the bacteria that can actually make you ignore that pasta that I explained at the beginning. It's consistently correlated with obesity. The causal beneficial impact of Akkermansia treatment on obesity is really coming to light now. And it shows, there's a lot of different animal models that show cause and effect. So we do know that if Akkermansia is present, person does not struggle with weight. If Akkermansia is absent, it's much more likely for a person to develop obesity. Okay, how can I get some Akkermansia then? We know that Akkermansia can be grown by polyphenol foods, things like flax seeds and blueberries and even coffee, because that provides a lot of polyphenols in our diet. Also, dark chocolate does that. We know also that high FODMAP foods, the ones that contain those fibers, the prebiotic fibers, things like wheat and garlic and onion, apples, cauliflower, leeks, all of these foods would also feed Akkermansia, and oily fish as well. I also found this really interesting study that cranberry extract can protect from obesity by feeding Akkermansia. So that was quite interesting. So now for everyone who we obviously see that person does not have Akkermansia, we will give them cranberry, freeze-dried cranberry powder so that they can take it every day in their fiber mix and they start growing Akkermansia in response to that. But as I also mentioned, it's not just about the specific microbes, it's also about diversity. We know that the higher diversity gut microbiome we have, the healthier we overall, not just weight, but everything else. So we really need to look after our gut microbiome and its diversity. And it's not just about the diet, it's about physical exercise. Of course, we know it improves diversity. Proper sleep improves diversity. Contact with animals or pets definitely improves diversity because they bring in lots of different microbes in our house, and they have their own gut microbiome that they share with us. And exposure to sunlight, this is quite interesting. So there is a link with vitamin D here as well. We know that when we are like on holiday, we obviously feel better on holiday. It improves our gut microbiome. Who would have known? We also know that, of course, the pollution is not a great thing, but can we avoid it is another question. And there's lots of antimicrobiota compounds. We know that antibiotics obviously reduce the diversity of gut microbiome. Dietary emulsifiers do the same. Artificial sweeteners, refined sugar diets, pesticides, stress, alcohol, all of these are negative things. And although in terms of alcohol, there's some studies showing that red wine, obviously in small quantities, does improve gut microbiome in certain people. But the most important thing that we have in modulating our gut microbiome is our diet. And this study shows that we can change our gut microbiome quite dramatically within 3 to 4 days. But it has to be a very dramatic change. So here, I think what they've done, I can't see if it describes the diet here. So basically, they've taken someone who is on typical Western type diet and they put them on plant-based, not vegan, but plant-based. So not just grains, but a lot of vegetables, a lot of different diversity, a lot of different types of vegetables, nuts, seeds, fruits, legumes, and they've managed to change completely the gut microbiome within 3 days. And yes, the key here again is diversity. We know then from some studies that in order for us to get to the maximum diversity through the dietary changes, we need to aim to consume 30 plus different types of plant-based foods. And that means within a week, sorry, not per day. So within a week. So what you can do, you can write down all of the new types of plant-based foods that you consume per week and try to introduce maybe the new types that you don't normally go for, or make sure that you change them completely from one week to the other. So like, for example, if you had a salad with tomatoes and cucumbers day 1, and then day 2 you have again salad with cucumbers and tomatoes, you can't count that again. You have to count only the new types. Right, and now going back to previous week, I found a study that shows that we can grow Akkermansia by fasting. This is interesting. So this was the study trying to increase gut microbiome diversity, and they specifically focused on 2 bacteria, including Akkermansia. It was a pilot study, so very small sample size, but they did observe an increase in microbial diversity over the study period, and which was only for 1 week, followed by a 6-week intervention with the probiotic formula. Yeah, so only 6-week study, which definitely was good enough to improve the situation. Right, so that was all about the gut microbiome. Just some important things that I wanted to explain or to focus your attention on is, again, diversity, trying to grow Akkermansia if you have it. We can also improve the diversity of the gut microbiome by eating lots of different plant foods. 30 plus per week would be a good aim. And I think we have some questions. Okay. Stella, should we do some questions now?
Yes, sorry, I muted myself. I was talking to myself. Yeah, we can do some questions. So there's a couple of questions here. One from Helen about cortisone injections for gut microbiome. What's the effect of that? Does it affect the microbiome to have a cortisone?
Ooh, I
mean, not even just injections, I guess, even maybe tablets.
I probably need to look into that, but we do know that any medication, they definitely affect our gut microbiome.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would probably say the cortisone injections would do that too. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Green powder supplements such as athletic greens, do they help kind of count towards your 30 a week and help with the microbiome?
Definitely, absolutely, yeah. Dried fruit count towards 30, yes. Dried fruit, well, they do theoretically, yes, but we know that dried fruits contain a lot of sugar. And sugar is anti-gut microbiome compound. So you'll have to find, ideally, you'd need to find something else. Yeah. The green powder definitely helps, yeah.
Okay, so you can do these kind of cheats, these concentrated powders and stuff like that. Fruit, does fruit count, or is fruit not?
Yes, it does, yes.
It does.
Vegetables, any fruit, any legumes, nuts, seeds, and even whole grains count.
Okay, okay. So this is, I'm a little bit confused about the fruit, because fruit, in your previous week, you had said, presentation, you had said you advise really no more than 2 pieces of fruit a day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So it shouldn't, so fruit shouldn't be, the reason, listen, I'm telling you this too, because I have these ongoing conversations with my husband about what he should should be eating. He eats like tomatoes, cucumber and lettuce every day, and he says, oh, that's okay, that's all he needs. So I'm trying to tell him, you know, you have to widen your range of plant-based food. And then he's like, yeah, but I had 5 pieces of fruit today too. So we have this ongoing debate, let's call it, about this. But it's actually quite hard when you think about it, like a normal Western diet, to incorporate 30 different fruit and vegetables every week in your diet. Okay, it is actually quite challenging to do that based on how most people eat. So you actually have to be quite creative with your food and how you cook, and all of those things. This is another subject, another day. I'm just making a point really, because I think, you know, you have to have lots of stir fries and that kind of thing, where you can incorporate lots of different types of veg.
Yeah, definitely. Like smoothies are really good, because in smoothie you can just blend several different things together and just drink it in one go. Like powders could be good. Well, that's, you know, going into supplement territory here.
Yeah.
Juice, yeah, stir fries would be really great. Or
yeah. Smoothies, I think a morning, like a mid-morning smoothie is always really good, with lots of greens and other things in there as well. Other veg. It's a good way of capturing that. Let's get some of these other questions here. It comes down to the type of food. Live yogurt and Actimel, are these good? These are your probiotic, right?
Yes, that's the probiotics. Yes, definitely. Actimel, probably not so much, because it's again full of sugar. So make sure that there's no sugar and no artificial sweeteners, because they say no sugar, and then you look and it's artificial sweeteners, which is bad for gut microbiome. So just go for natural probiotic yogurts, like Greek style is really good as well.
Yes, berries are lower in sugar. So if you have berries, then you can have 2 other fruits over and above. We're trying to get cheats in here.
Berries low in sugar. Yes, I mean berries. A portion of berries is 150 grams, and a portion of other fruit would be, like a medium-sized apple, basically. Yeah, so you can definitely have 2 apples, or apple and a pear, and then a portion of berries easily.
And berries, because they're much lower. Yeah. Does zest count? I season with orange and lemon zest. So do I, Charlie.
Yeah, great. Yes.
Yeah. Different spices, do they count as?
Yes.
Funny. They count in your 30 foods, really?
They don't. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the research to say that they should be counted. They only counted vegetables and, you know, plant-based foods. But I mean, I theoretically, you kind of think, well, they're also plant compounds, right? Yeah, they should be counted. What I've seen is the research to show that if you include 5 different spices, there was a recipe there in the study. I should have included it actually.
We can add it later on the forum.
Yeah, which combined things like turmeric and cinnamon and white pepper, and I think maybe oregano and some herb de Provence, something like that. It actually improved gut microbiome, but you have to take it every day.
Yeah. Yakult, maybe not, right?
Yeah, just because of sugar, and there's lots of
sugar levels. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're better off just going for pure food types, you know, like, as you say, live yogurt, bio yogurt, that kind of thing, than branded, because they put all kinds of additives in there. Some nice ideas here. Fish chili stew with different veg, that's a great idea. Wild cranberries, are they a superfood?
Well, I don't really like kind of calling certain foods superfoods, because I don't think it's right. But for the ability to improve or increase Akkermansia growth, cranberries are great.
I have a question. Has the Akkermansia, which that word is going to be ingrained in my brain now, because it obviously is a very powerful bacteria, but have they found any links with antioxidants? Because there is that school of thought, isn't it, like with the higher levels of antioxidants, that you can promote more gut bacteria, or am I just making that up? So I read that somewhere.
It's Well, it depends on what you consider antioxidants, because antioxidants traditionally were the vitamin E, C, the selenium as well, and
like glutathione, these types.
glutathione, yes. So no, they probably won't, no, but if we talk about antioxidants from plant compounds, things like phytonutrients or anthocyanins, those, you know, bright colored things that are also called antioxidants, they do work, yes, for gut microbiome.
Okay, okay. There's some great comments in here. Brilliant. Guys, keep sharing. I love it. Put it on the forum so people can see it as well in the future. They don't lose it once the Zoom is finished. There's some great comments in here about what people are doing. Does taking Himalayan salt in water daily, which is meant to be a detox, help the gut? Salt.
Ooh, that's an interesting comment. I mean, for certain people, yes, it's a good thing to do, but for everyone, I'm not sure really. I probably would need to check that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because, you know, for some people who have high blood pressure, salt is not recommended, and even if it's the best salt out there, but people who exercise a lot, do lose a lot of electrolytes, they do need salt in the water. So it depends who you are, what your situation is, I think.
Right. And then how can we avoid leptin resistance? The big question.
Well, we have to reduce its production so that our cells become sensitive to it again. And we know that obese people have leptin resistance, so they're not hearing the signal at all. And their bodies are flooded by leptin. So
yeah.
Leptin, sorry, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have another question here because this is I found this quite interesting. So here it's very, you know, small place where I'm in now, and small agricultural plots, and they go immediately and sell them to the supermarkets. You literally go to supermarkets and you buy veg with earth all over it, you know, which is great because I feel like I'm in a farmer's market when I'm in the supermarket. I'm just literally taking that home, and it's, you know, it feels very fresh. Now, we're very highly sanitized in the UK with our supermarkets and how we buy our food, and it's, you know, isn't it better actually to buy from farmers markets or be able to get the food as quickly as possible as it's come from the seasonal local foods?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that will help with the microbiome anyway, generally, won't it?
Absolutely will, yes.
Because the high levels of sanitation and how we sterilize all the food, and, you know, what we do with that in the long period from where we buy, when it's picked to when it's eaten, it loses its goodness.
Yeah, very good point, Stella. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I have just one more question and we'll carry on. What's your view, Olga, on lean protein consumption when you're very active, rebuilding muscle and recovery? Is it healthy to have over 100 grams of protein a day?
Sorry, is it in the chats?
Yeah, it's from Mary.
What's the view on lean protein consumption when you're very active, rebuilding muscle and recovery? It helps you to have over 100 grams protein a day. It depends. Well, so you need to calculate it based on your weight, on your BMR. Well, if depends on your size, obviously 100 grams of protein if you're very active is good. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. Historical research says 100 grams, but I assume that's maybe for the average person, perhaps not like to. You can go higher. Yeah, it depends on the activity that you do and your size. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Let's crack on then.
Okay, great. So next section is about our DNA and our genetic differences, really. Just very briefly, we do know there's obviously a lot of new research to show that our genes also involved in how we metabolize nutrients, and that will help us to, doing our DNA will help us to identify whether we are more suited to, say, a low carb diet or low fat diet. Yeah, because it's a spectrum. Yeah, all of the different diets are on this spectrum, One corner here, you have ketogenic diet, which is very extreme, high fat, low carbohydrate. And on the other side here, you have very extreme low fat, high carb diet. Yeah. And there's everything in the middle, in between. So there is this Mediterranean diet that is considered one of the healthiest diets in the world, which is somewhere in the middle. So it's like a balanced macronutrient breakdown. It does have carbohydrates quite high and also has quite high fats. So the DNA, our DNA, when we test it, it can tell us how well we metabolize or how we deal with fats and carbohydrates, so that we can see where we fall on that spectrum, really. So this is one of the latest scientific research or review of really, does this hold any truth in scientific papers? And that was, I think that was a really good, I can't remember which magazine I took it from, but they did find that personalized dietary recommendations based on genetics of a person, they're quite innovative, and it's promising approach for the prevention and treatment of obesity. And this is what really also makes us different, but it does not determine, right? It does not determine whether you, it wouldn't really solve, if you're obese, doing the DNA test wouldn't really solve it. It will give you an indication of which way you would need to go in terms of macronutrient breakdown. So it will be like a shortcut, basically trying to find your ideal diet. Yeah, because one diet, as we know, would not work for every single person. We are all very different. And when we do a DNA test, we can actually see how well your body is dealing with the sugar or carbohydrate. And if you show very high sensitivity to sugar and carbohydrate, that means that you definitely have to drop that down as much as you can. And that would be the best diet for you. But sometimes what I'm seeing in people, that it shows that the person is very sensitive to dietary fats. And this is when it would be better to actually drop the fats rather than carbohydrates. And then it does work for people better. So yes, what can DNA tell us? How we handle sugar, carbohydrates, how we handle fat, the type of diet that would be best or better for us. So personalized nutrition, well, some studies also show that personalized nutrition is more effective for long-term weight loss success. So if I'm telling the client that this is the diet you should follow because I think it's best for you, the client may listen to me, yes, but they will still be like, I'm not sure, okay, I'll give it a go, yeah. But then if I'm telling the client that we've done your DNA and this is what your DNA tells us that this is the diet you should be having, the client is more likely to stick to the diet. And which diet is the best? The one you can stick to, yeah, the one that you actually can do for a very long period of time without, coming off it. So the studies also show that DNA-tailored diet also lead to greater long-term dietary change and adherence compared to the gold standard population-based weight management interventions. So it's all about the long, because what we know about the diets, people go on them and then when they come off them, they regain the weight. So this is the worst thing you can actually do, right? But in order for you to stick to something, it needs to be very personal to you. When you believe it's very personal to you, it does seem to work. So that's what DNA-tailored diets do. Right, there was another one, enhanced long-term dietary change and adherence in a nutrigenomics guided. Yeah, I think this is that study that I just explained. So this, if you wanted to read about it, so this is the study, how they've done it. It was a randomized controlled trial, and they did show that it was much more effective compared to all of the diets. Right, now a little bit about hormones and how they can prevent us from losing weight. We know that if a person has an issue with thyroid, so there is a thyroid gland here in our neck, and if we have low thyroid, or it's called hypothyroid, we produce much less active hormones. And these are the hormones that regulate our metabolism. So that's, when I say metabolism, that's how much calories we actually manage to burn while resting. Yes, so this is our basal metabolic rate. And thyroid hormones, well, they one of the most important hormones that regulate that process. So if a person does not produce enough thyroid, it will slow down metabolic rate. Everything will slow down. We also know that, oh yes, one of the most important signs or symptoms of thyroid is gaining weight without changing diet, and basically something that you can't explain. You've just started to put on weight. So it's definitely worth checking if you're struggling to lose weight. There's this very similar situation with adrenal glands because they produce cortisol, and this is our stress response. The cortisol can interfere with how we handle glucose, and it can also prevent us from losing weight if we produce too much cortisol. We also know from previous session about insulin. So high insulin leads to reduced, right, that's a mistake here. High something leads to reduced insulin sensitivity in cells. Higher blood sugar, lower fat burn. What did I mean to say here? Probably that if we have always high insulin, our cells reduce their ability to be sensitive to insulin. So the more insulin we produce, the less sensitive our cells become, because it's too many messengers really telling you to take the glucose in, because that's what insulin does. And the more insulin you produce, the less effective the message becomes. So that leads to higher blood sugar and lower fat burn. So that can also prevent us from losing weight. So working on our insulin sensitivity is obviously important for that reason. Right, going back to thyroid, these are the main signs and symptoms. When we have underactive thyroid, we feel fatigued, we have sluggishness, mental and physical. We normally get constipation, cold intolerance, hair loss, weight gain. Some people get depressed and get abnormal blood pressure, and even heart arrhythmias. So what can be done in terms of if we find that the person has underactive thyroid? Well, we can try and kind of approach it from the natural point of view in terms of diet and supplements, trying to find why a person's thyroid is failing. So we normally do a full thyroid panel, which is 6 markers. NHS does 1 or 2, yeah. And we then can investigate why. So if we find that thyroid hormone production is reduced, it could be because we don't have the raw materials, for example. So iodine is what we need to make thyroid hormones. Selenium is also important to make thyroid hormones. Iron, so if a person's got iron deficiency anemia, this will slow down thyroid as well. So we will check all of these nutrients in blood and make sure that these are not the reason why. And the main dietary treatment is autoimmune paleo diet. And that's no dairy, grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, nightshades, sugar, and alcohol, mainly. We also try to eliminate goitrogens. So these are the compounds that can interfere with thyroid hormone production. And they come from cruciferous vegetables, so something that we consider very, very healthy. But if we boil or cook cruciferous vegetables, it neutralizes goitrogens, and it also comes from soya products. We also then check and make sure that the person's not exposed to high levels of chloride and fluoride, because both of them, because they antagonize iodine that is necessary for hormone production. So basically, if we remove fluoride and chloride contamination, it should improve thyroid function. And very important thing here, people who have thyroid issues are not recommended to do fasting or like intermittent fasting, because it can actually slow down thyroid further. Adrenal function. So usually with adrenal functions, what we find is that person, when they're too stressed or they've been under a prolonged stress for some time, they produce too much cortisol. And it becomes their normal. So high cortisol in blood is their new normal. And this disrupts the body's blood glucose control and stimulates glucose secretion from the stores, from the liver, and it causes high blood sugar, which also the cortisol interferes with your sleep because it keeps you awake. You can't fall asleep when you have high cortisol, because cortisol is there to prepare you to fight or run away from the danger, because it's a stress hormone. How can you sleep when you're stressed? No, you can't. And it can cause weight gain, especially around the abdominal area. Yeah, so around the middle here. Yes, so because adrenals are responsible for stress response, this is when your body is preparing you to run away or fight. This is the typical, flight or fight response when you get stressed. And if you're not using it, if you're not using all that additional energy, additional blood sugar that your body is just giving you to run away, that's going to have a detrimental effect. This is all of the different things that happen in your body when you have high cortisol. It not only affects your weight regulation, but it affects your blood pressure, because it constricts the blood vessels. It increases your blood pressure because, again, you need more blood to run away, right? You need more oxygen delivered to your muscles. It reduces your digestive function, because digestion does not become a priority in this case. It relaxes your bladder, so some people really need to go to the loo when they're stressed. It has so many different effects. You can have a read there. And this is the typical look when we test someone's adrenals or stress hormones. This is what we typically see in people who are very, very stressed. It's a saliva test. So you basically spit in the tube 4 times a day, and we want you to fall in this green corridor here. This is where your cortisol should be. It should be elevated in the morning. This is what wakes you up. But then it should go down, and it should be almost 0 by the time you need to go to bed. And unfortunately, this is Claire, one of my clients. So her cortisol was off the roof, off the scale here. We couldn't even fit it on the graph. And of course, she was very tense, very wired, easily obsessed, stressed, in pain. She had poor digestion, chronic fatigue, and weight gain, of course. So we had to deal with cortisol first before we could do anything else, really. So this is the person who you absolutely cannot put on the intermittent fasting, because it's just going to cause them to create more cortisol. So how to lower your cortisol? Obviously, we have to then avoid all stimulants. That's your caffeine, your alcohol, your processed food, your sugar. We need to make sure you get plenty of sleep, no extreme exercise, especially HIIT, like the high intensity exercise, because that can also cause you to produce more cortisol. So only light type of exercise, maybe yoga, maybe walking, swimming, that's it. We also can use some adaptogenic herbs or adrenal glandulars to, because your adrenals are overworked. Yeah, they're going to be exhausted soon. And we need to make sure that we look after adrenal glands and give it all of the nutrients that they need to make hormones. And this is when it's actually recommended to have 5 small meals per day and no fasting. And so this is the dietary approach that we use for stress response. Again, we make sure that we have protein with each meal, and essential fats are becoming really important. Complex carbohydrates, this is when it's important to actually do include them. Magnesium, because that's very important. You're draining your magnesium stores when you're very stressed. Your vitamin C and B vitamins, especially. There's lots of different lifestyle strategies to try and lower your stress response, anything from, you know, the meditation, yoga has been shown to be great, breathing exercise, laughing therapy is great, positive social encounters, exercising in nature, music therapy has been shown to be really great, dancing, even, you know, even chewing reduces the hormone that actually stimulates your adrenals into producing cortisol. Right, just to quickly touch on vitamin D, there's several studies to show that even though, you know, if you supplement vitamin D, is not going to make you lose weight, but in people who are deficient in vitamin D, a repletion or making their vitamin D, you know, in optimal level again, will help them lose weight. Because if you're deficient, this is what can prevent you from losing weight. Vitamin D is very easily checked. You know, you can do a home test now, just a finger prick. NHS website sells this for £25, and it's very useful, especially, you know, knowing that vitamin D is so important for our immune function. So that would be one of the most important things to actually check and make sure that you supplement if you need to. And yes, there was some about the calories I wanted to talk, and then also emotional aspect. So just because of the time, I think I'm just going to briefly touch on the emotional aspect of why we eat. Yeah, so Stella was talking about, like, she does have the craving for carbohydrates in the afternoon. So we have to ask ourselves, why is it? What is it? Is it hunger? Is it thirst? Is it boredom, reward, stress, sadness, emotions? What is it? Yeah, have a conversation with yourself. Try to identify what's happening. And then we have to break the cycle. So if you have in the same situation every day, this is, and that situation puts you at risk of overeating or reaching out for something that you know you shouldn't be eating, then you have to consciously break that pattern. So just changing the order of your evening can help. Like, for example, if you know that you're gonna want to eat something naughty, when you sit down after dinner to watch Netflix, what do you have to do? You have to remove yourself from that situation completely. It doesn't have to be forever. Maybe for a week, maybe for 2, maybe go for a walk after dinner, maybe go to your, I don't know, do some work on the computer, maybe do an exercise, maybe, I don't know, there's so many, maybe have a bath. So anything to remove you from that situation would make you forget about the snack. And before long, it will become your new normal. And eventually you'll be able to sit down and watch Netflix without the need to have something to eat with it. And if you really feel like you can't go without the snack, then you have to plan ahead for a healthy snack option. So I've given you some of the healthy snack options here, something that would not dramatically jeopardize any of your efforts, right? And you have to keep unhealthy snacks out of sight, ideally out of the house. Because I know if I have something that I really love and I shouldn't have, if it's in the house and I know it's in the house, I'll go and eat it. There's no question about it. But if it's in the supermarket, I'm too lazy. I'm not going to go and buy it. And another thing you can do, because sometimes we actually confuse hunger for thirst, drinking a herbal tea can help with that. And we know that drinking a warm drink is better than having a cold drink. It sends different signals to our brain. And we also know, like, even putting a little bit of fat in a drink, like green tea with coconut oil in it, will send a signal to the brain that we've just eaten. So we shouldn't be hungry anymore. Another really interesting trick, that you can go and brush your teeth if you're struggling, especially after dinner, after you've eaten, and you shouldn't be hungry anymore, and you shouldn't be eating any snacks. So going to brush your teeth will kind of send a signal to your brain that you've finished eating for the day and you're preparing for bed, and that's it. That should turn off your appetite. And yeah, so this is another one. If you feel like, yes, you're definitely hungry and everything above fails, then you can go for a protein or protein plus fat option, because as you remember, protein and fat don't raise blood sugar as much as the carbohydrates. And there is a whole thing that you can do about mindful eating. So it's how you eat. It's you know, taking time to chew. It's allowing your body to send the signal to your brain when you're full, and actually hearing that signal and actually stopping when you hear that signal. If you keep ignoring that signal, you're not going to hear it. Your body's going to tell you when it's full. So paying attention to the food, to every mouthful, chewing, putting your knife and fork down between each mouthful will help you get there. But it's practice. You have to practice it. And another thing, that believing that you can also is very, very powerful. So if you believe you can change your habits and routines, you actually will. Reminding yourself of your past success can also help you feel more confident about your ability to change your life or your lifestyle. And if you remind yourself of that, you're definitely gonna be more successful. And yes, just some top tips and key messages from today. If you do have a resistant weight loss, investigate it. There must be a reason. Always look after your gut microbiome. So check your thyroid, adrenal function, just to see if these are preventing you from successful weight loss. Check your vitamin D, maybe other nutrient deficiencies, because if your body is missing any nutrients, it's going to increase your appetite and make you crave things. And that can be in the way of you losing weight, obviously. And then some of the mindful eating techniques, yeah, would also be very useful, I believe. So, okay, let's see some questions then.
Yeah, there's a question I missed last time from Tracy, and she's been drinking the athletic greens, good to drink before I am allowed to eat food. Am I right? Will this supplement count as food? And does it stop her fast? I mean, it does count as food, right? If she's having it during fasting time.
Oh, she will need to check the nutritional information on the back. So how much she's taking, how much sugar is in there. If there is more than, say, 1 gram of glucose or sugar or carbohydrates, it will stop the fast, yes.
Okay, so just have a check, Tracy, on the back there. Let's go back to oral thyroxine, because obviously that's prescribed usually is in the first instance with underactive thyroid. Does it affect her weight? Do you know that?
If you are on medication for thyroid, it should help.
It should help your weight.
Yes.
Yeah, it should help your weight. Okay. And you made that point. I think a lot of people don't realize that when you go on the NHS and have the thyroid test, they only look for 2 markers. It's not sensitive enough. So it's really worth doing a private test on thyroid if you suspect that you have underactive or overactive thyroid, right?
Yeah, and it's also for the reason that NHS doesn't normally test for antibodies. And if we find that your thyroid is a Hashimoto type, which is the autoimmune type, which is where you have antibodies present. That can be resolved by supplementing selenium. One of them can be resolved, yeah, only one of the antibodies. But NHS doesn't even check that, so they just give you a medication straight away.
Yeah. So it's just worth maybe, if you have those symptoms, thinking about that a bit more carefully, and maybe getting some private testing. How do you measure your cortisol levels? You mentioned there it was a saliva test, right? But that's a test that is done through clinicians like you, okay? Or can you buy those off the shelf? I don't know.
You have to go through a practitioner, yes.
Practitioner, okay. So, and it was interesting seeing Claire's graph, because I would suspect a lot of your clients have similar patterns.
Yes.
I mean, I've had adrenal burnout in the past, so I know how that brings on weight gain, especially around the middle. I think a lot of people don't realize how their stress levels affect their weight. Yes, Jocelyn, you're right. The pandemic leads to constant stress. That's why we have to be even more careful to use all these practices that we're trying to promote. But yeah, I'm with you. I get you. I asked last week about gallstones and any strategies to deal with them.
Yes, I looked at the intermittent fast, and unfortunately, that's contraindicated with gallstones. Yeah.
Okay, so shall we keep off the intermittent fasting?
Yeah.
Can I take supplements from fasting, magnesium before bed? Yes, absolutely, right? From Anne, she takes magnesium if she's doing fasting, can she take the supplements before?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any tips for dealing with EMFs? I'm not sure what that means.
No, me neither.
No, we don't know. And maybe you can still there tell us what EMFs mean. I know my antibodies are high. I've been tested on HS. What do you suggest apart from selenium? Oh, and Wi-Fi, etc. Oh, yeah, of course.
I know my antibodies are high. I have been tested on NHS and prescribed thyroid. So what do you suggest apart from selenium? Well, the diet, the autoimmune diet, definitely. I think it was on one of the slides. What else was there? Because it's if you have both of antibodies raised, only one antibody can be reduced by selenium. So I would definitely test selenium before supplementing, because with selenium, the more is not the better.
Yeah. There was someone who was given melatonin, I read earlier, for high cortisol. You heard of that before?
Melatonin's banned in our country. So
is it? I didn't know that. Is it? That's interesting. But is that good or bad?
Well, it's a hormone, so we're not allowed to use it, to be honest. No.
Okay.
I mean, we use it sometimes for sleep issues, for jet lag, but
yeah, maybe. It's interesting because you can buy it in other countries in Europe. You can walk into the chemist and buy melatonin. That's interesting that it's banned in the UK. Oh, apparently you can get it from your GP. She's been prescribed it. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, if it's prescribed, but it used to be a supplement, so we can't use it anymore.
Oh, as a supplement. Okay, it has to be prescribed. Okay. I think we're going to need, there's loads of questions coming in, but we're like 20 minutes over, and I know Olga's struggling with her throat. So we are going to probably wrap it up here. We'll maybe look at some of these questions, like that. There's a good question there about the relationship between serotonin and weight gain, and we'll post that on the forum. Just keep your eyes open on the forum, and in the following weeks we'll just post some of this stuff. I'll ask Olga and we can post some of this information on there. But in the meantime, thank you again, dearest Olga, because you just jam pack it with information. I think we could just do like 10 sessions with your with all your info, and we've had like, so many questions coming from it. It's so interesting. Now, if anybody would like to have a more personalized approach with Olga, drop me a line, stella@wellbeingescapes.com, and I will put you in touch with her. And you know, Olga also does testing. A lot of the testing that you saw earlier, that is possible. Like you do the DNA testing, don't you? Yeah. And you do all the other testing that you talked about with the microbiome and all those things. So if you're suffering, or if you feel like you really want a personalized approach, then she's one of the best in the business. I would highly recommend. So let me know. We will continue to, as I say, put resources on the forum. We'll be in touch next week about who's coming on for next Saturday. There's a few more places left on our course on Wednesday with Claudia. I think that's it. I've got so much to remember. Can't remember everything. But have a wonderful week. Let me just make sure there's anything else I've forgotten to say. No, that's it. Have a wonderful week ahead. Stay healthy, stay curious, empower yourselves, stay calm as much as you can, and see you all soon. Thanks again, Olga. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Stella. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.